What a fantastic place this is. I love it. And look, there is that 160-mile-an-hour dash down to the first corner. Last source, hairpin bend, second gear, 35 miles an hour. And let us hope and pray that there is not a gigantic pile-up after that first corner, as there was in 1998 when David Coulthard slid sideways on the track on the descent to Eau Rouge, and 13 of the 22 cars piled up. Because if there isn't, it's going to be absolutely fabulous, because as a result of yesterday's weather, where it started wet for qualifying and then dried out, we've got all sorts of people in places on the grid we don't expect to see them. He's not one of them. Michael Schumacher's third on the grid, behind the superb Juan Pablo Montoya and his brother Michael in the Williams. But you've seen Martin talking to Heinz-Harald Frentzen, fourth on the grid in the Prost. Amazing, amazing. But he's gone very well today in the warm-up, sixth fastest. Mika Häkkinen, seventh on the grid. David Coulthard, ninth on the grid. Down there in 12th position is Kimi Räikkönen, who was third fastest this morning, knows this Spa circuit very well. Nick Heidfeld, his teammate in the other Sauber, who's been doing so well this season, is down in 14th place. And Jarno Trulli, who started second on the grid next to Mika Häkkinen last year, is down in 16th position. So there's going to be some fantastic, we hope, carving through the field by midfield and tail enders.
This is a track where you can overtake, Murray, if you've got some speed through Eau Rouge and getting the slipstream on the long climb up to the Le Coumbe chicane. You can pass cars here, and also if you're brave into the bus stop, there's a few tears shed there usually at some point through the Grand Prix here. What they have to be careful of is that first corner. Everybody concertinas up the inside. You can go down the outside. Occasionally then you get caught up in the incidents. And often we have a spinner on the exit as they're over anxious to get on the power, to get down to Eau Rouge for the first time. I'm assuming with traction control, we're likely to see less of that this afternoon than we would normally see here. But occasionally you can also lose the car on the way in there. The momentum starts and you don't collect it up. So it's going to be a strange afternoon, strange qualifying session. Remember, they only had 45 minutes of running yesterday morning before qualifying. That's why it's so topsy-turvy. And we have to assume, as you say, some drivers will be coming through the field. This man, Michael Schumacher, started 16th and won the race, passing 15 others, including myself, with a certain amount of ease. He was stunning that day, absolutely stunning. And I have to say, in this morning's warm-up, he looked more committed, more comfortable than any other driver did Michael Schumacher. Ralph Dent, second on the grid. He will not want to be outperformed again by Montoya this afternoon.
No, indeed he won't. And let's just make this point straight away. That BMW engine behind Montoya, sitting in the grid, concentrating there on his start, as Gilles Villeneuve did, that Jacques' father one year. I remember at Monza, the race was stopped and restarted, and he sat in the car for 15 minutes just looking stoically ahead. Do not break the concentration. Well, it's being broken now. Off come the tyre warmers. Those tyres are too hot to put your hand on now, and they will get hotter still when they get up to race temperature. Not very much hotter, but as much grip as possible.
Great unknown this weekend for tyres. Obviously Montoya starting on used ones. They're very used by the looks of it. I think we could be back into the Michelin scenario where they're good in the beginning, fade, and then come back again once they've cleared the rolled up rubber off the top surface. But they've had so little running, so much of it has been with a drying track or in the rain, that the teams have a lot less data than they would normally like to have going into a Grand Prix.
And you can hear the engine revs rising. They rev massively high these days, and away they go for the installation lap.
Once again, the BMW Williams team sitting out most of the warm-up, saving their engines. They clearly rev them a lot less in the race than they do in qualifying, so they have less power, and that's why I think they'll not romp away from Michael Schumacher and the others this afternoon.
Now, this climb up to Eau Rouge, and they're climbing up from it now, looks quite flat on the television screen, but believe you me, when you come to walk up it, it's very steep indeed. Now they're going up to Lecum, which is the right and left-hander at the top of the circuit. They approach that at 205 miles an hour in race conditions. Turn right, turn left, and then start dropping downhill to Rivage, the double right-hander.
Yes, I can see out of the window, I think one of the Minardis, probably Tarso Marquez, did not get off the line. Alonso, we're hearing it is. I can't... yes, Alonso not getting away initially, but of course those 4 drivers that failed to qualify yesterday outside the 107% rule have all been allowed to start the Grand Prix, but Alonso with problems already, and we also think that the mechanics were still on the track with 15 seconds to go, and we know from earlier in the year that will mean a penalty.
Yeah, and it was David Coulthard that suffered that penalty in the past. And the cars that failed to qualify within the 107% rule were the 2 Arrows and the 2 Minardis. But because of the exceptional circumstances due to the weather, they were rightly allowed into the race. So this is coming up to turn 14, the right-hander, where the new part of this brilliant Spa circuit joins the old one, which was just about twice as long and was discontinued because of the problems of weather sometimes being fine at one end of the track and pouring with rain at the other, as we ride with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Prost. And I remind you that he is in 4th position on the grid. That's Michael Schumacher ahead of him, led by the 2 Williams BMWs as they come into the bus stop. And that is a left, right, left. Very, very slow indeed. Not as slow as the last source hairpin, the first corner on the circuit. And this is where Montoya will, I'm sure, start to slow down and let the rest of the grid assemble behind him so that he spends the minimum time possible on the line and thereby risk burning out his clutch. So that's Pedro de la Rosa, Olivier Panis, Kimi Raikkonen, the rest of them pouring through. Jenson Button in the Benetton. Jarno Trulli well down on the grid because he's down in 16th position. Eddie Irvine only 17th in the Jaguar. They're not expecting to do well here. This circuit doesn't suit them all that well. We're with Heinz-Harald Frentzen on the line.
Slightly difficult start. It does incline backwards, and you have to be careful not to let your car roll here. So they'll be using hand clutches, left foot gently on that brake pedal, and something around 10,500 RPM, but not yet. Not until those famous lights start to appear.
Cross your fingers and join with me. Let's hope that there's not a pile-up after turn 1.
Car stalled, it's Frentzen.
Frentzen stalled his engine, and he's got to let them... Are they going to abort the start? Yes, they've aborted the start. Charlie Whiting, the race starter, has aborted the start. Well, that's a good thing in many ways, a bad thing in others. It's a very good thing because there's always a danger if you're at the front of the grid that someone behind will arrive doing 100 miles an hour from the back of the grid to the front and pile into you. You remember when Schumacher and Bertie had that problem earlier this season? Well, race stopped, you see, but it never actually started.
Frentzen will not then start from P4. He will start from the back of the grid. I do not believe they'll refuel the cars. They will reduce the race by 1 lap. If a driver clearly demonstrates he stalled the engine before they hit the start procedure, the final part of it, then they will always abandon the start, especially if the car is near the front.
An electronics glitch question mark or a Frentzen glitch?
Who knows, but you've got to assume that he pulled for first gear and either didn't have enough revs on or the clutch was still dragging a little bit. Remember, Frentzen was always seeming to have problems with the Jordan too. It seems like he doesn't like these launch control systems.
Terrible luck for him because he worked so hard yesterday to get into that totally exceptional 4th position on the grid. Where would I have expected him to start in the Prost? Well, to be honest, I think about 14th on the grid. This, after all, is only the 2nd race that the German has driven for the French team in after having been fired by Eddie Jordan from his team.
So we immediately go into a restart procedure here, and we'll have a look and see how many minutes they apply to that. Normally it's a 10-minute procedure, and we're understanding the restart is 9 minutes past the hour. That's 9 minutes past 2.
What this means, of course, is that if it is going to rain, well, I'm not going to say if it's going to rain. When it rains, it is now that much sooner, because we've had an extra 10 minutes for the race period, or will have by the time it starts. Unusual situation here, of course, is that the start is actually on a corner. The cars at the back of the grid are at a distinct angle from those at the front. They've closed it up a bit recently, but there was a time when they had to have 2 sets of lights to get the grid going.
Yeah, I must admit I haven't seen that, but
You've probably never been that far back on the grid, you wouldn't know.
I was pretty handy at Spa, but I'm sure I was back there somewhere from time to time. But yes, you were more a question of waiting for the car in front of you to move than looking for any lights. And there used to be a few circuits in the world, actually, where if you were towards the tail end of the grid, you couldn't see the start lights.
You can see this is just a replay of stuff before when they were coming through to assemble on the grid, and you see how you really need to jump the curbs. That was the bus stop exiting from the so-called bus stop, the chicane at the end of the lap, to slow things down a bit before they get to that 35-mile-an-hour hairpin bend at La Source. And it can be a real suspension wrecker if you get it wrong, although sensibly the curbs these days have been re-profiled. You remember at Hungary a couple of weeks ago, they actually had to cut the tops off some of the curbs because David Coulthard virtually destroyed his McLaren when he went over one of the turns during practice. So let's hope now that with the start due at 9 minutes past, and it's now about 7.5 minutes, we just have got 1.5 minutes to go. Montoya in the car, pole position, extra tension on the drivers, of course, and if all goes to plan, it is now 8 minutes past the hour here in Belgium, or presumably it's 8 minutes past the hour everywhere in the world, but it is a different hour in Belgium than it is in England, for instance. And there should be just about 45 seconds to go now before the second start, or the second attempt at a start, after Heinz-Harald Frentzen somehow succeeded in stalling the Ferrari, the Petronas badged, the Ferrari engine in his Prost. The Petronas, of course, is in the Sauber. And there is Montoya waving his hand as they take the tyre warmers away. Now there are 25 seconds to go officially to the attempt to get this race going.
Montoya getting a bit agitated there. I think he felt that they weren't clearing his car, and the yellow flags are waving because we think Montoya has stalled the engine.
No.
So Montoya then, now we know why he was getting agitated. The car has no motor running at this time. What will they do with this? He will have to start from the back of the grid. They did not hold Frentzen back. That's strange. Maybe Frentzen will go to the back of the grid, but why have they not? Normally they hold, mind you, there's no space really for the cars to go around, so they probably briefed Frentzen to go to the back of the grid, and so will Montoya. So number 1 man and number 4 man on the grid. Men will have to start from the very back, and it is, as you say, Murray, on a curve. You can't even see the start lights from some of those grid positions way back there.
And Schumacher benefits. Which Schumacher? Both of them. Because Ralf Schumacher is now effectively in pole position, and brother Michael in the Ferrari is now effectively in second position on the grid. And I know that Michael was pretty happy about his Bridgestone tyres yesterday. He said, I'm the Bridgestone pole position man. That was Montoya, and my heart goes out to him. He's starting, or was due to start, for the second time. There we are, there he's waving his hands on this replay. My engine has gone. Well, he probably wishes it had gone altogether now after the frustration of that, but it had left him temporarily.
Well, he's got enough speed to do something. I mean, it's bad for him, but it's good for us watching this race. This is going to be an interesting Grand Prix this afternoon, no doubt about it. And there then is Frentzen, who has fallen to the back. I think they didn't hold him on the grid because it's so narrow here, and especially with Montoya stalled on the grid as well. That was a smart move, so they let Frentzen go, but he's clearly been briefed, and he should know anyway. All drivers should read the regulations. He must start from the back of the grid as the penalty for holding up the start proper. And I remember many years ago, Andrea De Cesaris, and one of the reasons this came in was De Cesaris had forgotten to put his air plugs in on the start.
There's a surprise.
So switched the engine off, and to make sure that nobody else started. And of course, in those days there was no penalty, so that's the sort of things we used to get up to, but no longer.
Wrote off more cars than anybody else. 12 McLarens in one season. However, Montoya now joins the men at the back. It's starting to get more interesting at the back than it is at the front. I joke, of course, with the two Schumachers up front, making it a race of their own, no doubt. With Frentzen no longer behind them immediately. And of course, this is now going to be a 43-lap race rather than a 44-lap race as originally planned. And that'll take about 1.5 hours, even if it does not rain.
Well, it's looking a bit sparse up there at the front end, isn't it, now? And Ralf Schumacher, now the effective pole sitter, absolutely all clear there in second place. Just his brother he'll have to keep an eye on, steaming up the inside. But we know that Williams to be very strong. And there then is Montoya, right at the back of the grid.
Here we go. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it is go, go. Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher leads. Barrichello coming up into 3rd position behind Michael Schumacher. And they turn in, and Fisichella is well up in the Benetton. He's in 4th position as they drop down to Eau Rouge. He's got ahead of Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR, and David Coulthard from 9th position on the grid has got ahead of somebody because he's tucked up right behind Mika Häkkinen. Here they come up to Les Combes for the first time, and Michael Schumacher is right behind Ralf, and he's going to try and take him. Can he get through? Fabulous start by Michael Schumacher, who takes the lead on lap 1 of 43. He's going to take a lot of stopping now. Barrichello 3rd, Fisichella 4th, then the 2 McLarens 5th and 6th. They have made progress.
Michael definitely got in the sweet spot behind that Williams and found a great toe. You have to assume he's on lower fuel. That really was an easy pass, a lot more speed. We know that they've had to knock some revs out of that BMW engine for the race, as I spoke about earlier, but I'm surprised at just how much under pressure Ralf Schumacher is, and we'll have to see. Maybe it takes a time once again on the cold days. It's just 17 degrees out there on the track for those Michelins to come up to full operating temperature. But Williams under pressure from Ferrari. The starter of the day was Giancarlo Fisichella up to 4th. Häkkinen is now 5th, Villeneuve 6th, Coulthard 7th. They've all made 2 places, of course, with the demise of Montoya and Frentzen, and Montoya is already up to 20th place.
Now this is the interesting bit. Fisichella in 4th position. That Benetton is really showing signs of coming good here in Belgium. It's got a completely new aerodynamic pack, engine changes for the Renault, and Fisichella, if he can hold on to this 4th position ahead of the McLarens, will be doing a cracking job, and everybody is really getting the hammer down now. Schumacher leads his brother by 2 seconds.
And look at Jenson Button up into 9th place. He's just been passed on that last lap, actually, by one of the Saubers, but Button from 15th up to 8th towards the end of the first lap, and then just losing a place in the bus stop. And that is an alternative view of the fabulous Eau Rouge corner. And there then is Button. He is still in 9th behind Raikkonen.
Yeah, and it's an indication again of the fact that Benetton are getting things together as past the arrows. That's Jos Verstappen being passed by Montoya. Montoya, who started last, and Jos Verstappen started 19th. So Montoya has already made up a couple of places as he comes up towards the Jordan behind him, and Michael Schumacher leads. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams still 2nd. Barrichello, who was pressing him, seems to have dropped back a bit in 3rd position. Then it's Fisichella, Häkkinen, Coulthard. Villeneuve has lost a place. Kimi Raikkonen has lost a place. Jenson Button, as Martin's just told you, has gained 6 places. A storming first lap. And look, he is gaining now, is Jenson Button on Kimi Raikkonen, who is in 8th position.
So that's the man to watch, Jenson Button. It's nice to be talking about him again after last year in the Williams. He's had a bad season so far for Benetton, but it looks as though it's coming good. Fingers crossed.
Both Benettons flying off the line then. I think it's Raikkonen we've really got to watch. He's the man moving in on Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve passed last time around by Coulthard, so two McLarens are 5th and 6th. Michael Schumacher then leads by 2.1 seconds at the end of the first lap. And look at this squabble.
Jarno Trulli chasing Eddie Irvine in the dark green Jaguar. And right up amongst them too is Olivier Panis coming through behind Pedro de la Rosa, who is in 10th position. Top 10, here they are. This is lap 3. Schumacher, Michael, Ralph, Barrichello, Fisichella, Hakkinen 5th, Coulthard 6th, then Villeneuve followed by Raikkonen, 9th is Button, 10th is Alesi.
And let's follow Montoya up to 16th already then, Montoya. So he's moved through 5 cars from the very back of the grid, Michael. A full 1.3 seconds faster that lap than Ralph. And this then is Hakkinen passing Fisichella for 4th place.
Yep, the McLaren goes up a place, and David Coulthard, I suspect, is going to follow him through in the second McLaren, because if Mika Hakkinen can get past the young Italian, I have no doubt that David Coulthard will be able to as well.
Coulthard will have to wait, I think, until Lecum next time around. And no, he won't, because Fisichella's made a mistake. Fisichella made a mistake through the left-hander, and Coulthard then easily making his way down the inside of Pouon and pulling away. Villeneuve now attacking the young Italian.
Yeah, Canada chases Italy. Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR, who started 6th and has therefore lost a place, coming up behind Giancarlo Fisichella's Benetton in that position, and right behind them you can see Kimi Raikkonen in the Sauber. So Ferrari leads, Williams 2nd, Ferrari 3rd, now down up into 4th and 5th places the two McLarens. Down to 6th goes Fisichella in the Benetton, and Jacques Villeneuve, the world champion of 1997, has beat.
Raikkonen's going to have a go up the outside here, and I think he will make the pass on Villeneuve. Raikkonen very, very fast through Blanchimont and under braking into the bus stop. Magnificent driving there from the young Finn as he takes away Villeneuve's 7th place.
Yeah, brilliant by Raikkonen, but let's not forget that he's in the superbly balanced Sauber as Mika Hakkinen runs wide and David Coulthard on the outside of Fisichella.
Yeah, that's a replay of Fisichella's mistake and Coulthard taking the place. And look at this little traffic jam.
Yep, and we're on lap 5 now out of 43, remember, not 44, because we've lost a lap due to having to restart the race after Heinz-Harald Frentzen stalled his car. And you can see the McLaren getting a bit loose there as he went through Eau Rouge. Ralf Schumacher 2nd, Barrichello 3rd. Look at the gap between Barrichello and Mika Hakkinen. It is 4 seconds. Michael Schumacher, obviously the fastest so far. His fastest lap, 1 minute 50.5 in round figures.
Car getting out of shape was actually Montoya. He's now up to 15th place, having passed Irvine, but really working hard through Eau Rouge. We saw from that overhead camera, the Michelin's not working well at the moment. It's the Bridgestone runners that are on the move.
Yeah, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen has not done as well from the back as Montoya. Frentzen, who started last but one, that's to say 21st, has got past Marquez and Bernoldi and is now in 19th position. Montoya, who started 22nd, has passed Alonso, Marquez, Bernoldi and Verstappen, and sorry, he's still up behind Verstappen. He's in 19th place.
Michael Schumacher 2 seconds a lap faster than any other man on the track on the last lap. I mean, that's outrageous. He had that kind of advantage in the warm-up this morning. I'm expecting all of the key players to two-stop. I've got a bit of a question mark about the Williams, but a two-stop apparently, I'm hearing from various teams, is the optimum. But as I said, so many of these teams do not have as much data, and somebody's had a big one
there. I can't see who it is. Pile of tires, and it's
there's a Jaguar and a Prost, so we think it's Bertie and Eddie Irvine.
Yeah, it is Irvine.
And that Prost is a long way into those tyres. Where is
Here it is. there is Bertie in the yellow helmet. This is a replay, of course, and they touch as Eddie Irvine goes past. Bertie loses it, goes over the grass into the gravel trap in the Prost.
That is a nasty accident, Murray. I'm not looking forward to this thing connecting, because that is on the way into Blanchimont. That is 190 miles an hour. Oof. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have to red flag this race. That is not a good... There's no good accidents. That is a bad incident there for Luciano Berti. That is top speed, spearing straight into the tyre barriers, and I'm not happy with that one.
Very, very bad news indeed, as Tasso Marquez comes out of the pit lane after a very early start. But we are all now worried about not the Jaguar down there, and hopefully Eddie Irvine is perfectly all right. But they're actually having to burrow into the tyres quite literally to get at the Prost and find out what's going on in there.
Eddie Irvine helping out there. He knows too, like we all know, that is a very serious incident. And obviously Eddie didn't realise that Bertie was alongside him. And they touched. Bertie losing his front wing, only able to go absolutely straight.
The safety car obviously is out and leading the race round as we try to establish what has happened to the charming Luciano Berti from Brazil, and he's obviously at best unconscious because there was no movement in the cockpit when we were looking down from the helicopter. A lot of agitation from the medical people there, and Professor Sid Watkins, who is the FIA's chief medical officer, will have immediately been on the scene, because he literally sits in a Mercedes-Benz with the engine running at the end of the pit lane to deal with any medical eventuality.
Problem there is, Murray, is it's an unusual place to go off, and before Blanchimont, and there's no conveyor belt on those tyres. Where the tyre barriers are really exposed, they put a conveyor belt so that you can't get buried underneath those old car tyres.
You were talking to Mark on the introduction to the programme yesterday about a place where there was only 4 rows of tyres, and that you were worried that something might happen. They're literally having to drag the car out. You say, is it there?
That's the same corner we were talking about. Yeah, it's in that zone. But that is highly unusual to crash on the way in. He's missed the end of the gravel trap, look, effectively, and the little bit of gravel he did hit just sent the car up into the air. So virtually unabated speed that he connected with that barrier. And what's worse is the car didn't ricochet out and let more energy.
There's a replay. You
let
see,
more energy dissipate.
Bertie on the inside of Eddie Irvine. As Eddie turns in to take his line, he had no alternative there, which removed the front wing and the barge board, and he goes unabated speed straight over the edge of the gravel trap and the hard grass and into that row of tyres, and he would have been doing, when that accident started, something like 185 miles an hour, and would not have been able to scrub any speed off. A very concerned looking Alain Prost, the team principal and owner in the Prost garage, obviously extremely worried about what is happening to his protege Luciano Berti, and I do not like the sight of that blanket screen which has been erected. The last time I can remember seeing that was when they were taking Michael Schumacher with what turned out to be a broken leg out of the Ferrari when he crashed at the British Grand Prix and lost a lot of the season before last. But anyway, the car has now been eased out of the tyre wall.
Yes, and they've neutralised the race. They have now red flagged the race, which I think is the only option here this afternoon, because that is one of the most serious accidents I've seen for a while in Formula One. It's the severity of the impact and the lack of flailing around and the energy. That's Irvine in the background, you can see, who had a similarly big accident, but that Prost just simply stopped in a very short distance, and they're the ones that really do some damage. But I keep seeing a yellow helmet in there that looks not dissimilar to Bertie's, but that's on a corner safety worker. So Luciano Berti then, I mean, it will be no surprise if he's unconscious, Murray, anyway, because the sheer energy involved in that impact was enormous. But let's hope it's...
And looking on the bright side, as one must, I remember David Purley in the Lec car, who had Formula One car, which had a most enormous head-on, flat-out crash, and the total length of the car was reduced, and I'm not joking, to about 3 feet. And David Purley, after suffering really awful injuries, made a complete recovery. So, just to summarise, the race has been stopped on lap 6 out of 43 in Belgium, after Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar and Luciano Berti in the Prost had a collision as they were exiting the 190-mile-an-hour Blanchimont corner, which resulted in Berti leaving the track at great speed and going virtually straight head-on into the Armco. For what it's worth, Michael Schumacher was leading his brother Ralph by 0.8 of a second in this what was to be 43-lap race, with Barrichello, Häkkinen, Coulthard and Fisichella completing the rest of the top 6. Ralf Schumacher talking to Michael.
Yeah, they'll be discussing the incident. Michael 5 seconds slower on that last lap. He'd lost 5 seconds of the lead. Clearly responded to the safety car boards that have been put out and the yellow flags before we went into a red flag procedure. And that procedure is all about reforming on the grid in no particular order at this stage. There is a line where they go to and wait for a restart procedure, and they seem as if they're now able to get Luciano Berti towards the ambulance.
When people say to me, what has changed most in your time in Formula One, I always say safety. And one of the dramatically improved safety situations now, of course, is that the cars all have this removable seat, a special seat which can be lifted out with the driver in it, so that you no longer have to pull and tug at the driver's arms and try to get his helmet off. All the necessary splints and things will have been put into position, and then Berti will have been lifted out of the car, and it looked to me as though he had been lifted out of the car and was being put into the ambulance on that last shot we saw. And that is Kimi Räikkönen running in, because his car was stopped, has been stopped in the loop after turn 22. And turn 22 is the bus stop, so Kimi Räikkönen for some reason running in as the stretcher there is carried away.
Pointless, he will not be allowed to start the race in the spare car. The race is way too old to be introducing spare cars into the equation. But what bothers me about the Luciano Berti incident is that those tyres can come into the cockpit. I remember going off in Manicourt at the hairpin once like that with a suspension failure and at a lower speed. And the tyres tend to come up the nose and come into the cockpit, and of course to a certain extent you are exposed in that situation. So
although since the appalling accident which resulted in the loss of Ayrton Senna at the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994, the cockpit sides have been very much lifted. Here's a replay. See Eddie Irvine trying to take his racing line as Berti is alongside him, and that was the collision.
Yeah, I don't want to see too many more replays of this one, please. Eddie Irvine also having a sizable accident, but clearly he's okay. Yeah.
Well, there we are. You can see that they are slowly making their way towards the special car there, and we can but hope that all is going to be well for Luciano long term. He had a dramatic enough season before this, because he started off with Jaguar, of course, and then lost his place in the Jaguar team and was seconded to the Prost team.
sont concernés par la sortie de route de Luciano Bucchi. Ce que l'on sait, c'est que tout va bien pour Eddie Irvine. Et Alain Prost a déjà
So, no words of mine can really add to the pictures you're already seeing. I'm afraid I don't know any more than you do exactly what is happening down at the scene of the accident, except that the fact that those blanket screens were still being held up indicates that Luciano Berti has not been put into an ambulance and removed from the accident scene. Meantime, all the drivers can do is what they are doing: reform on the grid, wait for another start, which would be the third attempt, and talk amongst themselves about what's happening. And Ron Dennis talking to Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard. Of course, the normal things that one would want to talk about at this time, as you see the appallingly damaged Prost there. Things like, for instance, is Mika Häkkinen going to be driving next year or not? It seems so totally irrelevant now. This is an indication of the fact that, as we all know, motor racing is dangerous. No one has ever tried to pretend that it isn't. Everything that can be done is done to make it as safe as possible, but it still remains a dangerous sport. You see the scene of the Luciano Berti Eddie Irvine accident on the exit to Blanchimont, and Louise Goodman is in the pits.
Yes, I'm down in the Prost area in the pit lane. A few worried faces behind you, as you can imagine. I can tell you, though, I've spoken to a member of the team, and initial reports from race control suggest that Berti is okay. Now, there was no further report beyond that. We don't know exactly what okay is, but that's the first news that we have.
Well, it would appear that they have got the Brazilian into the ambulance now. From the pictures we're looking at, Eddie Irvine's still down there. And as so very often happens, I remember when James Hunt and when Ronnie Peterson crashed at Monza in 1978, the race that sadly took his life. James Hunt was very much involved in getting him in the car. Racing drivers have to exhibit powers of leadership, and it's very obvious that that is what Eddie Irvine is doing. He's getting involved, and rightly so, in finding out what is happening.
It's good to see so much of the front of that Prost intact. So now it's really, did those supposed safety tyres really come into play? And as you said, Mary, Luciano looked as if he was certainly unconscious, and but the safety sail really has stayed superbly intact, hasn't it? I don't think Eddie Irvine has any blame at all in that incident. I don't believe he knew that Luciano Berti was coming around the outside of him, and there is a left curve before Blanchimont itself, and I think he was just taking the normal racing line. It wasn't a blocking incident. It was I think he just really hadn't quite clocked that Luciano got a run on him down the outside there. So I don't think Eddie Irvine has, in my view, any blame there. But there's a better shot of the Prost, and you can see the nose intact. So it's really just a question of, did anything ingress into the cockpit?
That Marshall, incidentally, is not having fun. He's not having a free ride. He needs to sit on the nose of the car, because obviously with the front wheels and the suspension removed and the engine at the back of the car, it would slide down out of the crane sling if something wasn't done to counterbalance it. And it's quite usual and traditional for marshals to do exactly what he has done. Now, of course, while we wait for the restart time to be confirmed, I can tell you that the pit lane exit has been closed, so there's no question of anybody getting on the course. we have to wait while the tyre wall is laboriously rebuilt. As you can see, there are batches of 9 tyres which are literally band-aid together. Some of them have been broken up, but normally the organisers have got spare batches in reserve so that they can be slotted in. But look, you see, he went off at the apex of the gravel there, and he went in where it's a very good thing that he didn't go in just a few yards later, because there was only 1 row of tyres. Craig Pollock on the left, Bernie Ecclestone on the right, Flavio Briatore in the glasses, talking about the accident and the restart, obviously, as the amber lights flash over the 5 traditional red lights which start the race.
It's a horrible time for everybody involved in Formula One when there's been a big accident and you don't know the circumstances, and there just seems to be a lack of information. It is a long way out to that corner, and it's unclear initially, and there's some uncertainty, a bit of misinformation occasionally, and it's just a very uncomfortable time.
So you can be absolutely sure that as soon as we get any information, we will tell you what happens. I'm like you, Martin, I think I've seen enough of this, but here it is again. And Bertie continues across that very narrow section of the gravel trap. Look, you see about 10 yards further on, and there would not have been 3 rows of tyres there, the 9 tyre depth in all. There would have been at best 2 and probably 1, and those are the shattered remains of the Prost, and you can see what a colossal hit it took, with the radiators torn off, with the front suspension torn off both sides. That's Willy Rampf on the left, who is the Sauber designer, Jackie Eckelart, who is one of the race engineers. Michael Schumacher getting back into the car. I don't know why at the moment, because we still have no restart time. He's obviously checking out something inside the Ferrari, but the safety belts are being done up. Matter of interest, the driver cannot do up his own safety belt satisfactorily. The mechanics have to do it for him, because terrific tension has to be put on them to retain the driver, and that's one of the things that hopefully will have helped Luciano Berti, because he will have been, like all of them, very, very tightly strapped indeed into the Prost, with a belt over his right thigh, his left thigh, round his waist, over each shoulder. They come to a common junction and a common release mechanism. Louise, what's the news?
Well, I'm just standing in the pit lane with Nicky Lauda. Eddie Irvine has just come back in the safety car and walked through the garage to the truck, but he did have a word with Nicky on the way through. Nicky, what did he have to tell you?
He says Luciano is conscious, which is very good after this incredible impact, and now they're going to check him out in the hospital, but it looks not as bad as it did look before.
Did Eddie give you any more information about how the accident happened?
No, I mean, it was easy to see in the television. He was on the inside, and then they both collided with that high speed, and then Luciano just went off into the wall, basically.
Thanks, Nicky. That's good news then.
If, let us hope and pray that what Nicky has said is not only true, but will be amplified to indicate that Luciano Berti is indeed all right, and if he is, it will be a racing miracle, and yet another testimony to all the efforts that the Fédération Internationale Automobile, the governing body of motorsport, led by Englishman Max Mosley and Professor Sid Watkins and the FIA Race Safety Committee, do to make racing safer. You can never make it safe. Motor racing is a dangerous sport. It always has been, it always will be, but you can try to make it safer, and that is what they do all the time, by making the tubs of the cars stronger, by getting the drivers deeper down into the car. Look how little of Mika Häkkinen's head is showing above the safety collar there, which has already saved many drivers' lives, by putting them in the correct racing suits and fireproof overalls, by making sure that they are belted tightly in, that the crash helmets are of the correct design, that there are gravel traps around the circuit, that there is Armco barrier to stop them going into the crowd. All these things have been done and more since, in particular, Formula One began in 1950, and most particularly since the late and great Ayrton Senna was involved in that dreadful accident at the San Marino Grand Prix, being pursued by Michael Schumacher in the Benetton in 1994. And you did, at Rubens Barrichello, and that is the ambulance that will have delivered Luciano Berti to the medical centre, which is the building with the grey roof.
Magnificent facilities at every Grand Prix circuit now. Also taking a bit of a heart, I think they delivered the damaged chassis back to the Prost garage rather than to a Parc Fermé or neutral area, which also gives good indications as far as I'm concerned. But certainly that information through Louise and Eddie Irvine. Eddie was right there on the scene, so he's got as good a view as anybody of all of that, and also the fact that the other Prost is still on the grid gives me a little bit of heart.
And me, Alain Prost, the man. What a dreadful season he has had, with all sorts of financial problems. I hope they don't think that is a rebuilt tyre wall that's satisfactory. I don't. That looks to me like a bit of a Fred Carno reassembly, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Now, let us hope and assume that Luciano Berti is all right, in which case we can speculate about what is going to happen on the race restart. Will they be restarting it as a new race over the originally intended 44 laps? We had done 4 laps and we're on lap 4. That is the collar from the plastic collar which goes round the edge of the cockpit from the Prost car, which is rightly being returned to the organisers and the Prost pits to have a look at what resulted from the accident in the way of car damage, because they will be looking on this as yet another opportunity to make motor racing in general, Formula One in particular, even safer. Now, I can tell you that there's going to be the race is going to be restarted. There's going to be a new formation lap, and it's going to be in just under 3 minutes' time. Bernie Ecclestone consults with, or rather talks to, Ralf Schumacher and tells him what the form is. Heinz-Harald Frentzen gets into the Prost. Now, I would like a look at the full grid to see where that Prost is on it, whether it is going to be in his previous position, which was 4th on the grid for the original intention to start, or far more likely at the back. And the answer is far more likely in the back. Indeed, it looks to me as though they're just restarting the race in the order that it was before. In which case Heinz-Harald Frentzen would be in 16th position on the grid. But just to recap, for those of you who may have joined us expecting us to be well into the Belgian Grand Prix, first of all, Heinz-Harald Frentzen stalled the engine in his Prost from 4th position on the grid, as a result of which the original start was aborted. It was then started, and Michael Schumacher rapidly took the lead from the what had been new pole position man, because Juan Pablo Montoya also stalled his engine from the grid position, which was pole position. And then on lap 5, with Michael Schumacher leading his brother Ralf and Rubens Barrichello, with Mika Häkkinen 4th and David Coulthard 5th and Fisichella in 6th position, the race was stopped very violently when Luciano Berti and Eddie Irvine had a coming together in respectively their Prost and Jaguar cars. And the information that we have at the moment, and I underline the fact that it is not definitive and it is not official, but we have heard from Eddie Irvine, who has talked to Lauda, that hopefully Berti is, quotes, all right. With 4 full laps completed. There is the new grid.
This bizarre thing going on at the front of the grid. Ralf Schumacher still up on jacks. The mechanics had to get off in that 15-second period, otherwise he'll get a stop and go. But he'll start from the back of the grid. He's still on the jacks. They've got their synchronization of the procedure wrong. And there is Ralf, absolutely, I've never seen this before, stranded on his own jacks as they were preparing to put the car back down on the ground. They had to clear the grid. They got caught out by the 15-second rule. Bizarre afternoon. Let me take you through the rules. I think this is number 158 of the sporting regulations of Formula One, and the original race will be null and void, and the new distance will be the number of laps they had completed away from the total minus a further 3 laps. Any car can restart providing it got back to the start-finish line under its own steam, which Raikkonen did not do, so he cannot take the start. So this is a whole new Grand Prix. James Allen.
Well, Martin, it just shows you how easily you can take your mind off the job. It's something they've done hundreds of times before, a start procedure. But what happened was all mechanics left the grid. Even Ralf didn't realise that he was still 6 inches up in the air. And believe it or not, Ferrari mechanics were whistling and waving at them, telling them, hey, your man's still up on the jacks, he can't start. Suddenly it dawned on everybody, this awful realisation that the Williams car was stranded. Another bad mistake by the team in just a few minutes.
Martin, let me be clear about this. 4 laps had been completed, plus 3 is 7. The original race distance was 44 laps. My assumption, therefore, is that this will be a 37-lap race. Does that ring well with you?
I haven't done the mathematics, but I'll read you the clause. The length of the restarted race will be 3 laps less than the original race, less the number of classified laps completed by the leader before the signal stop was given. So I believe you're right, Murray. It'll be the original distance minus 7 laps.
So take it from us that whilst we check officially, because we are standing here in a commentary box, that our assumption is that it will be 37 laps, probably less the one. Yes, I think less the one that they are doing now. 36-lap race. So unless I'm very much mistaken, it's going to be a 36-lap race as you look at Kimi Raikkonen's car there. He walked in, and I presume that he is not going to be allowed to start. That's a repeat of the gearbox problem that both he and Nick Heidfeld had in qualifying yesterday, and which resulted in them, instead of starting about 6th or 7th on the grid, starting down in 12th and 14th places.
The drivers don't like restarts, Murray. They consider it the most dangerous part of Grand Prix racing, and they're never happy with restarts. So the race will be 36 laps. It is clear.
36 laps, Michael Schumacher in pole position. No Ralf Schumacher there because he's going to be starting from the back. What a dreadful race it's turning out. There is Ralf Schumacher, sort of in the middle of the pack. Heaven knows what he's doing there. Michael Schumacher up front. There is Mika Häkkinen. He's going to be 4th. He's got a clear run. He's on the right of your picture, on the left of the grid, therefore. So here we go again for 36 laps, and it's go again. Schumacher leads, Barrichello up behind him, and Fisichella making a storming start. Incredible start. Up into 2nd position ahead of Barrichello in the Benetton, and Montoya runs wide and is taken by about half a dozen cars.
I think Button had a stonking start again as well. We've got a damaged Sauber, now we've got a damaged Jaguar as well, with a clumsy mistake by Della Rosa. But I think we've got 2 Benettons well up front, both McLarens slow away, and Michael Schumacher then an easy lead. Who's next? It is Fisichella. Look at Button up in 4th place, under attack from Coulthard. Coulthard takes away Button's place. Magnificent start again from those 2 Benettons.
Schumacher, Fisichella, Barrichello in 3rd position. The 2 Ferraris 1st and 3rd. Behind them is the McLaren of David Coulthard, it looks like to me. Check on that. As Michael Schumacher streaks away in the... But look at this, Benettons in 2nd and 5th places after the season that they have had. And that is Fisichella, pursued by Rubens Barrichello, then the McLaren, and then the second McLaren, so it's David Coulthard, and touring in the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld, who started down in 12th position. As you look at Fisichella, Barrichello, then the McLaren, coming through to complete the first lap in this restarted race, which is going to be 36 laps long. Race leader, Schumacher, Fisichella, Barrichello, up into the bus stop. Barrichello having a look at the back of the Benetton. Is he going to try and come through at the bus stop? No, but Fisichella chops him off, and into and out of the bus stop they go now. Through to complete the lap, and Button holds his position. Michael Schumacher is now on lap 6 because that is the situation. Remember, they had already done 4 laps, and the race order now: Schumacher, Barrichello, Ferrari, and our screens go blank. This is turning out to be a pretty trying afternoon for all sorts of people, especially Nick Heidfeld, who is out of the race. So both Saubers are missing now. Kimi Räikkönen did not restart. Nick Heidfeld is out of the race. Michael Schumacher is through, and this is the battle for second.
Yes, and there you see the two Williams towards the back of the field. That will be for about 12th and 13th place, I would guess. We've got no data up here at the moment. After their different traumas, Montoya stalling in the first race, and Ralph being jacked up and stranded for the second race. I believe also Häkkinen has passed Jenson Button. So we've got a McLaren third and fourth now. Sorry, it's going to be 4th and 5th, isn't it?
Well, I had thought I'd seen it all, but I have never seen anything like this. I've never seen a grid with a car with all 4 wheels off the ground as the rest of them leave. And here is the battle for second. Fisichella pursued by Barrichello, with Michael Schumacher out on his own in front. Then the 2 McLarens of Häkkinen and David Coulthard, and that is Barrichello.
It's Coulthard and Häkkinen and Montoya
out.
Will he ever win a Grand Prix? He was absolutely sensational yesterday in qualifying for yet another pole position. He just cannot get to the end of a Grand Prix.
These modern engines, so highly stressed and overheated, are very, very sensitive and delicate. And of course, they've started and then started again and then started again. They've been sitting on the line, cooling down, then heating up again. And I suspect that's what's happened to the BMW engine in Montoya's Williams.
Well, they've got an Achilles heel there as well, haven't they, on reliability? That's why they sit out the warm-ups, Murray, and keep the revs and engine mileage down as much as they can. They're clearly exposed in that area at the moment, and there's a graphic demonstration as Montoya falls out of the race. A Jaguar in the pits, that'll be Della Rosa. He clipped the front of the slowing Heidfeld at the restart. He didn't need to, he had plenty of space to get around him. So Della Rosa then in the pits. We haven't seen him leave yet, and still Barrichello can't find a way past, and looks like he's out of the race.
And that says a heck of a lot for Fisichella, and even more for Benetton and Mike Gascoigne, the Benetton technical director, and all the rest of his people who've done such a sterling job, because Fisichella is staying ahead of Rubens Barrichello in second position. Fisichella on sheer merit. He's not making it difficult for Barrichello to get past by weaving, and Barrichello having a real good look now. A terrific scrap for second, third, fourth, fifth. Benetton, Ferrari, McLaren. Michael Schumacher is out on his own in this Belgian Grand Prix, which he has already won 5 times. He lost his win in 1994 in the Benetton. Here is a replay of the start.
And you look at the 2 Benettons, like they're in a different gear to everybody else. And there's going to be a bit of a calamity, I think, towards the back. I think the Jaguar of Della Rosa is going to get in the middle of a 4-way fight there. Montoya got caught up in it as well. And that is why we saw so many of them dropping back. Heidfeld's car's already damaged, and I think Della Rosa will now clip Heidfeld out of view now as he passes him later on. So.
the old belt and braces policy, which I've operated in the past, is not working now. We rely on modern technology in the commentary box to tell us what is happening in the race. All the cars have electronic senders on them, as a result of which positions and gaps and all that sort of thing are relayed onto a television screen in front of us, which enables you to keep you in touch, and that is now completely missing. All I can tell you is that Schumacher leads, that Barrichello is having a real good look at Fisichella, corner by corner, lap by lap, to try and make it Ferrari 1-2, that the two McLarens are not actually making up any ground at all on Rubens Barrichello in front of them. And this is a circuit where you can pass. It's not like Hungary, where you can't get past anywhere. There are passing places, but you've got to be right up behind them.
Oh, we saw enough passes already in the first part of this afternoon's events, didn't we? But I think the timing monitors have gone away. We're on board with Frentzen, who would have started again towards the back of the field. I think they've taken the timing monitors away at the moment, Murray. They were showing the wrong number of laps remaining in this race. They'll have to square that up after the red flag situation. I'm expecting he'll be back again with us soon. We've no idea where Frentzen is. It looks like he's having a sort of test.
He's all out on his own.
Having a test day out there, isn't he?
Sunday afternoon run at Spa-Francorchamps, and those brown marks on the circuit, incidentally, are from the plank underneath the cars. They all have a composition plank underneath, and if it is rubbed too much and reduces the ride height of the car too much, they can be excluded, and it was for that very reason that Michael Schumacher was excluded and lost his race win in 1994 in the Benetton. So there's the good news. We've now done 4 laps of this 36-lap race, which was originally going to be 44 laps. And the leader, we don't need telling that, was Michael Schumacher. 32 laps still to go. That's a long, long way. And there's not so many cars left in this race. We're with Heinz-Harald Frentzen, trying desperately to regain the situation that he had earlier on when he was to start 4th on the grid. But as you see, there's an enormous track gap between him and whoever it is in front of him.
So just to recap, the first race was stopped after an enormous accident with Luciano Berti in the Prost. And we see the arrows of Bernoldi there defending heavily against the BAR, I suspect, of Panis, with Ralf Schumacher now coming up behind them. We have the timing screens back. That is a scrap for
6th position. Now, here we are. We're on lap 9 out of 36. And Michael Schumacher, as our screens go blank again, is undoubtedly in there. I don't know why we're not seeing Schumacher. It's good to concentrate on this battle for 2nd position. And there are now 15 cars left out of the ones that started the second time. Schumacher has got a 10-second lead over the battle we keep seeing and that we're looking at now. Fisichella 2nd, Barrichello 3rd, Coulthard 4th, Häkkinen in 5th position. Jarno Trulli has worked his way up from originally way down on the grid in the Jordan, the Italian. He started 16th and he's now in 6th position. He's gained 10 places. His teammate Jorna Lacey in the 2nd Jordan is 7th, and Jenson Button in the 2nd Benetton with his teammate Fisichella 2nd is now 8th. The rest of the 10 are Jacques Villeneuve and Verstappen.
Yeah, Ralf Schumacher, the reason the screens went out again, he's 12th, he wasn't 6th, where they were showing him, Murray. So Ralf Schumacher squabbling around with Panis at the back of the field and Verstappen. But I don't know what Button's problem is, but he's certainly falling back. But Trulli's on the move. Trulli's actually catching the 2 McLarens at the moment. That's why you can see the yellow Jordan in the background, and Lacey a little bit further behind too. So Fisichella holding his own though, Murray.
Yeah, and if Michael Schumacher can stay there, and goodness, if there's one thing that the Ferrari tends to be, as well as the quickest car, is the most reliable. And we see now Olivier Panis battling with Jos Verstappen. Verstappen in the arrows is 10th. Behind him in the BAR, the white car, is Olivier Panis, and Jacques Villeneuve is down there as well. In fact, Jacques Villeneuve is ahead of Verstappen. Villeneuve is 9th. Verstappen is 10th. No, Verstappen's got ahead. So Verstappen is now in 9th position, as Jacques Villeneuve there dives through and takes Button and 8th position in the process.
Yeah, it was Panis, the BAO we're looking at before. Just to finish my report on Luciano Berti, we heard from Eddie Irvine, who was involved in the incident, that he appeared to be conscious. We have no further news. We'll let you know as soon as we get some. Your leader then, Michael Schumacher, 12.2 seconds ahead last time around. He's lapping still 1.5 to 2 seconds faster than any other man on the racetrack. A 49.9 that time around. 1 minute 49.9, and he's just romping away, isn't he?
Yeah, 1 minute 49.9, and the previous lap record was that of Jacques Villeneuve in 1:52.6. So that was in 1997 in the Williams. So Schumacher's nearly 3 seconds faster than the previous lap record.
Jarno Trulli is in the pits, just going past our window here, and this was Villeneuve shaping up to take Jenson Button into the long left-hander of Pouhon, as it's called. And unusual to see Formula One cars overtaking into there. And there then is Jarno Trulli's Jordan. So whether he picked up a puncture or what, we don't know. But Trulli, unless he was 3-stopping this afternoon, highly unlikely, I would have thought. I do not believe that was a scheduled stop.
Well, with 14 cars out of the 18 that started still running, let's try to bring you up to date with what happened to the people who have already left the race. Dick Heidfeld stopped very earlier on. You've seen Pedro de la Rosa, who has retired. Montoya has stopped with that blown engine from the look of it. He was in 16th place. He's now 5 laps down as the rest of them pull away. The top 15, 3 retirements therefore. The top 15 are still all on the same lap. Tasso Marquez is last, and Ralf Schumacher has worked his way up to 12th position. He's lapping at about 1 minute 54.5, but then so are all the cars ahead of him up to 8th position. So he's got a real battle on his hands. We're looking at him now as he closes up on Olivier Panis. You are looking at the battle now between Verstappen, Panis and Ralf Schumacher, who was on jacks and is now carving his way through the field. He's in 12th place.
He can't get through, can he? He can't get anywhere. But with Panis and Verstappen sort of at it as well, he really can't make the impression you would expect. And that's Hakkinen if he stopped. Now remember, as I say remember, I need to tell you that they were not allowed to refuel during the red flag procedure. If they did, they would have to have started from the back. So this is why you're seeing stops earlier in this race. Remember, race 1, null and void, but they were not allowed to refuel while they were sitting on the grid. So this is effectively the first stops. I think maybe Trulli's was a scheduled one then. This is the first stops had we been on the full Grand Prix distance. Hope that makes sense.
That is lap 8 out of 36. And you can see the Jordan has been in, and out he goes. And meantime, Rubens Barrichello, as they now come pouring into the pits and out again. That's Olivier Panis, who was with Verstappen. And it's going to take a little time for this race to settle down. Of course, all the teams will have had to dramatically revise their strategies. As you can see, Fisichella is still staying ahead of Barrichello, and it's lovely to be able to talk about a different car, a different team up front. Benetton, that did so well with Michael Schumacher in 94 and 95, are now doing jolly well in this race with Fisichella in 2nd place and Button 8th.
So we were just picking up a while back there, Ralf Schumacher attacking Verstappen. He has now passed him. Panis, of course, has pitted for his first stop of the afternoon. And Ralf Schumacher then up into what will currently be 9th place. In your 50 years of commentating, Murray, this will go down as one of the more bizarre races.
It's a bit special. Now let's tell you who's been in. Hakkinen has been in. Lacey was in the yellow Jordan that we saw leaving, so he has changed his Bridgestone tyres. Jarno Trulli has been in, so has Olivier Panis, and Pedro de la Rosa, of course, has not only been in but retired as the battle continued. Look at that. Fisichella now 18 seconds rounded up to Michael Schumacher ahead of him, still in the lead on lap 9 out of 36. And you can see that it's pretty close for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, with just about 2 seconds covering Fisichella down to Coulthard. In the 5th position, Jacques Villeneuve, who started. And here's Ralf Schumacher, replay, taking Jos Verstappen's arrows and moving up a place. And Ralf is now in 7th position.
Well, having said I very rarely see cars overtake like that. Villeneuve pulled that move 2 laps ago. Ralf Schumacher's now pulled exactly the same move. They seem to be losing speed out of the left-hander at the top of the hill and being easy meat on the way into the long left of Prix. But Fisichella, look, really putting a bit of fresh air between himself and the Ferrari now.
Well, David Coulthard says he's not so interested in second or third or fourth in the World Championship. He's interested in winning races. Of course he is, they all are. But he's not doing himself too much harm at the present moment if he wants to finish second, because he's ahead of one of his rivals for second place, which is Ralf Schumacher, who's in 7th position. On the other hand, he's behind another rival, which is Rubens Barrichello. The gap between Rubens Barrichello and David Coulthard in terms of World Championship points when this race began was 5 points, and they are now respectively on 4 and 3 points. So Barrichello is pulling away from Coulthard a bit for second place in the championship. We're on lap 10 out of 36. Into the pits comes the Ferrari, and James Allen is there to receive it. Barrichello.
Thank you, Murray. A very curious situation, of course, because the whole race has been messed up. Normally speaking, two-stopper, they would have come in around about lap 17. If you add together all the parade laps they've had, plus the racing laps, it's more or less about 17. There should be 50 kilos of fuel going in, around about 8 seconds. But what the people who really benefited here are the people who started out the race with a one-stop fuel load, because they'll get into the window shortly where they can fuel the thing once and keep going, and they will really have benefited. We'll find out who they are shortly.
Thanks for that, James. A good bit of strategy reading. We need all the help we can get. And here is Jacques Villeneuve in from 6th position. He was just 2.5 seconds ahead of Häkkinen, who has stopped, so therefore Häkkinen should have moved up. We'll wait and see on the track. And there is the Ferrari of race leader Michael Schumacher on his 10th lap, 20 seconds ahead of Fisichella.
And look at Barrichello there. Häkkinen did get out of the pits ahead of Barrichello, even if Häkkinen's now under pressure. So a good stop then from McLaren that time around. That has elevated Häkkinen nicely. Coulthard running up in 3rd place at the moment. He's not stopped, nor 2nd place man Fisichella. Michael Schumacher having a laugh up the front, 20 seconds ahead. Still 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap faster than anybody else. And what throws another curveball into the fuel equation that James is talking about is on the parade laps. They use so much less fuel, so that all has to be factored in. And now is the time for Michael to come in and give his car a little drink.
Yeah, with a 20-second lead, so I don't think he's certainly not going to get back in the lead. Fisichella and Coulthard, and maybe even Barrichello will go through before Michael Schumacher rejoins, but he will have been the first of the top 3 to make his pit stop. Now let's see what the situation is. Here is Michael Schumacher coming down the pit lane as the McLaren comes in.
To save your heart, Murray, I mean, he was 20 seconds ahead, and Barrichello's already stopped, as has Häkkinen. Coulthard stopping on the same lap. Fisichella did not stop that time around, so it's Fisichella that takes the lead of the Grand Prix.
And I'm trying to remember when the last time that a Benetton was leading a Grand Prix.
Was it Nürburgring, the one that Johnny Herbert won? Wasn't Fisichella in a great shape of winning that and spun off?
Just testing you, and you got it right. Johnny Herbert then, and lap 11 out of 36. Fisichella, who has not stopped, leads Michael Schumacher, who has stopped. And there to prove it is the German in the Ferrari behind the Italian in the Benetton. And if Michael Schumacher can just keep it going, he will be making history here today in Belgium by winning the Belgian Grand Prix for the 6th time, for the 5th time officially, having lost one of those victories, and to become the greatest Grand Prix driver of all time in terms of the number of victories, by winning 52 races in comparison with Alain Prost's 51. But, as I always say, there's many a slip twixt cup and lip, and there's a long way to go.
Well, he wasn't short of fuel, was he, Fisichella? He's fueled the longest of anybody with the exception of Frentzen, who's way down in 10th place. So those Benettons leaping off the line like that was not a fuel situation. They've clearly got some fantastic new launch control, and now then Fisichella takes to that extended pit lane. It's very, very long on the speed limiter here. Michael will, of course, then regain the lead. Where will Fisichella come out? Will it be ahead of Barrichello, Häkkinen, and where did Coulthard rejoin the track? We haven't been able to see yet. We haven't picked them up. It's going to be very tight between those four as to who made or lost in this current round of pit stops.
Yeah, let's remember that it's a Renault engine behind Fisichella. Renault were the first with a turbo engine and they made it work, and they were first with air valves and they made them work.
It's Coulthard going, so Coulthard's through then for Fisichella. No, he's not. Fisichella takes obviously the shorter route around the inside. So Coulthard did stay out ahead of Häkkinen. Barrichello was the big loser. Fisichella maintains second position.
Terrific bit of driving, and just to complete what Renault have done, they were the first with a V10 and now everybody uses them. So I think it was a matter of time before Renault got their new very, very special, and it's so special we don't really know what's in it, engine right, and it looks as though they're getting there now. So lap 12 out of 36 with Michael Schumacher. They've all stopped now except Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Of the right drivers who are out on the circuit at the present moment. Michael Schumacher leading the Belgian Grand Prix, which was started 3 times. Fisichella second ahead of David Coulthard. There they are on the track. Behind them is Mika Häkkinen, just 2.7 seconds behind his teammate in 4th position. 5th is Rubens Barrichello, who, as Martin said, was the man who suffered. There he is. And Jarno Trulli in the Jordan is in 6th position. 28 seconds covers the top 6.
Olivier Panis has received a stop-and-go penalty for crossing the white line on the pit exit. We saw the same happen to Ralf Schumacher back at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. So Panis then with a stop-go penalty, but that is not bothering these front runners. And Fisichella then on the Michelin shod Benetton is definitely able to hold his own up against that company. So Michael Schumacher then leads from Fisichella, David Coulthard, Häkkinen, Barrichello, Jarno Trulli makes up the top 6.
And we have a motor race on our hands, just about 4 seconds covering Fisichella, David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen in 2nd, 3rd and 4th places. Now here we are with Jean Alesi in the Jordan. That's an unusual sight for us for an in-car camera. Jean Alesi, who is in 7th position, 4.4 seconds behind his teammate Jarno Trulli and catching the Italian. He was just 0.2 of a second faster on the previous lap. I know that's not very much, but it is a gain nevertheless. And the mercurial French Sicilian is getting to grips with the Jordan as Olivier Panis exits the pit lane after his 10-second stop and go. He was in 13th position and he was 15 seconds ahead of Enrico Bernoldi, who is the last runner in the Arrows. So he will have retained his place as Rubens Barrichello can see Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, the silver and black McLaren with the Mercedes engine in front of him. Mika Häkkinen in 4th place. Well, the Constructors' Championship has been won very convincingly by Ferrari, with very nearly twice as many points for them as the second place team McLaren. There is a battle, of course, in the Constructors' Championship for second place between McLaren and Williams, with just 13 points separating them when this race began. No contest at the present moment, but look at this from the driver's point of view in the Benetton.
Heading down to La Source then, he'll have to come down to all the way to first gear. Turns in with quite a lot of understeer, but it's very wide on the exit, and David Coulthard is chasing him down, just 0.8 of a second behind him at this stage. Now the wonderful Eau Rouge get a load of this, take the curb on the left, and the car compresses in the bottom of the hill and over the top of Radion.
Lap 14 out of 36, and what a battle we have between Giancarlo Fisichella with Benetton to go to Jordan next year. Flavio Briatore and Pat Simmons there on the pit lane gantry, keeping their fingers and everything crossed, because this is the highest a Benetton has been this season. It is there by right. Fisichella is driving a magnificent race. Take us round with him, Martin.
So he's down towards the Pouhon corner. You tend to turn in quite early and just let the car run all the way to that curve on the outside, and a massive forces build, but the downforce squeezes the car down into the tarmac, and no problems at all. Fagna then, you must keep on the right-hand side, otherwise you don't have enough space to take the left-hander. Rumble strip on the right you can use, and this is a tricky little corner, the first part of Stavolo, but doesn't his car appear to be working well? Fisichella then through the main part of Stavolo, and superb, really not having to lift at all. That's why he's able to stay ahead, and this is the kind of speed that Luciano Berti went off at, and unfortunately we cut away. I think you'd have had a bird's eye view of the energy involved. We've just missed that point now. Into the bus stop then for Fisichella. Clump those curves, the cone stop, you're taking too much of it. The exit is easy now, you can hear the car bouncing on the sawtooth curves. Traction control cutting in, another lap completed, and Coulthard now 0.7 of a second behind.
So Renault, who perfected the turbo engine, Renault who perfected the air valves, Renault who did the V10, Renault who've got this magic engine which they've been working so hard on during the season in Fisichella and Button's cars, are keeping ahead of the fabled Mercedes-Benz powered McLaren of David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen, who are third and fourth. This is very, very significant, what we are seeing now, and it bodes well for the 2002 season.
And well, remember in the first race, which is of course now null and void, Coulthard did pass Fisichella up into Lecumbe. When he got in the slipstream, he had a superior straight line speed, but right now Fisichella is very strong out of La Source hairpin, and so Coulthard's not getting anywhere near him where he needs to through Eau Rouge. James Allen. He's not there.
James, we were hoping to hear from James, we're not doing so let's just quick reprise on what's happened in the Belgian Grand Prix so far. Well, it was due to start at 2 o'clock local time, but there was immediately a problem when Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Prost in a magnificent fourth position on the grid waved his arms to indicate that he had stalled his engine. So the attempt was made to restart the race, only for Juan Pablo Montoya in pole position to suffer the same problem. So then we did get the race going and ran on lap 5 out of what was going to be a 43-lap race. We had an appalling collision between Luciano Berti's Prost and Eddie Irvine's Jaguar. We still haven't got any official news about the condition of Luciano Berti, otherwise I would have told you. But of course the race was stopped. It's now been restarted. It's a 36-lap race, which was originally going to be a 44-lap race and then a 43-lap race. And we're now on lap 16, which is getting on for half distance. And Michael Schumacher, who started in pole position effectively after his brother Ralph had been left with his Williams on the jacks when everybody else streaked away, Michael Schumacher took the lead and looks as though he is on his way to his 5th official victory in Belgium, his 6th actual victory in Belgium. But this superb battle for 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th. And they are separated by about 4 seconds, those two battles. And the first one is something that we would never have expected to see, a battle between Giancarlo Fisichella in the Renault-powered Benetton, who is keeping at bay David Coulthard, who of course is second in the World Championship. And there is that battle.
Actually, that is Jenson Button, I think, defending from Ralf Schumacher, locking his right front into Lecumbe. Sorry, Murray, I think that is definitely a different battle there. Yeah. But Button lapping a couple of seconds slower than teammate Fisichella, so clearly I would imagine some kind of problem, or he's not happy with the handling or something, because Button really on the back foot despite that sensational start to the second part of today's Grand Prix.
Yeah, Fisichella seems to have had the best of Benetton all season. Of course, it's his 4th year with the team. He really knows everybody in the team, and that is a big, big advantage. We tend to forget that it's only Jenson Button's second year of Grand Prix racing. But I remind you that out of the race now, long gone, are Heidfeld, De La Rosa and Montoya. Tasso Marquez, who is 15th out of the 15 people who are still running from the 22 who originally were to start, is one lap adrift. The top 14 are all on the same lap, and you're watching now the Minardi being lapped. We're on lap 17 now, and David Coulthard try as he may, and there's no question of Fisichella having to come in and make a pit stop and therefore running light on fuel, because he has already done that. He's in. The McLaren and the Benetton are racing on even terms, and so are the McLaren there of Mika Häkkinen and the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello, who are 4th and 5th.
Just to remind you that Eddie Irvine, of course, retired in the first part of the Grand Prix, therefore not able to restart, as did Raikkonen and, of course, Luciano Berti.
Yeah, and David Coulthard is consolidating his second place in the Drivers' Championship at the present moment, because he is ahead of both his rivals. He's in 3rd place, Rubens Barrichello is in 5th place, and Ralf Schumacher is down in 10th place, not even in the points. An awful Belgian Grand Prix for Williams and BMW so far, after having done so brilliantly yesterday in reading the qualifying weather conditions so right, and getting Montoya and Ralf Schumacher out on dry weather tyres as the circuit dried out literally with seconds to go, as a result of which they took pole and second positions on the grid, with Montoya fastest, Ralf Schumacher second. Out of the race is Montoya with a blown engine, and Ralf Schumacher, who could have been right up at the front, is down in 10th place as a result of the shambles, with him being left on the jacks when everybody got away.
Häkkinen managing to ease away a little bit then from 5th place man Barrichello, and there's Barrichello without a wing. I think he's probably been across the grass at the bus stop. That is why he's falling back, and that's 4 1/3 miles he's got to go before he can drop into the pits for a 15-second nose change. So Barrichello having a disastrous afternoon. Good news for Coulthard, second in the World Championship. Barrichello struggling, and Ralf Schumacher back in 10th place, so he will have such a terrible understeer. He'll lose a good 10 to 15 seconds.
Look for the yellow Jordan in the background, because that's Jarno Trulli. He's in 6th position. He's bound to get past Rubens Barrichello without the downforce on the Ferrari. There is the new nose and wing waiting to go on. But meantime, Barrichello is having to feel his way round the circuit with massively reduced downforce and therefore grip on the steering wheels at the front. Jarno Trulli is gaining on him hand over fist. He was 6 seconds behind him. Jarno Trulli is going to take 5th position and 2 World Championship points, and his teammate Jean Alesi, who is currently 7th. There is Trulli. Trulli has caught Rubens Barrichello, who's still running 5th, and through goes Trulli up into 5th place, 2 World Championship points. Now, where is Jean Alesi? There he is. Jean Alesi is going to move up into the points. Jordan really need this, because they are down in 6th position in the World Championship. And there is Alesi.
Barrichello can't stop, of course, can't slow down. He's got no downforce on his front tyres. It's all at the back of the car, no grip at all. So that's why he's struggling under braking everywhere. And Alesi getting a good run off at him through Stavolo. And Rubens will have to be very careful in Blanchimont, otherwise he'll just drive straight off the road, and he knows it only too well. Luckily, the front wing will already have been preset for whatever they started this race with in terms of setup. He goes straight on into the pit lane. Barrichello then falling back. That was already Villeneuve about to take him. James Allen is there.
Tremendously dramatic afternoon here at Spa once again, as Rubens comes in without a front nose. I can tell you there's been other drama as well. Michael Schumacher, how many times has he been lucky run off the course? He did it on the last lap at Stavolo and just missed the barrier. Apparently Ferrari believe there is no damage to Michael's car. Clearly there is to Rubens's car, as the new nose goes on and fuel goes in as well, and Rubens is back out in the race.
James, I must take it. Jenson Button out of the race. You can see he's gone into the wall in the Benetton and has removed his left front wheel. He was in 10th position. He's out of the race. And here is a replay of what is happening, or what happened, as Ralf Schumacher in the Williams in the background needs to go through, and the wing comes off before Schumacher went through, so it was not a coming together. Jenson Button must have dislodged the wing as he went over the rumble strip.
Yeah, he took the front wing off on the left-hand curb, took too much curb on the way in, and then with the resultant understeer and the wing tucking itself underneath the front tyre, you're going to go straight to the scene of the accident with the wall so close to the racetrack. So we'll probably see that again. And now this is... That is interestingly, Barrichello losing his front wing in exactly the same way.
Now, all this is great news for Jordan as you watch Ralf Schumacher continuing to claw his way through the field. He is in 9th position at the present moment. Barrichello there is back in the race. But all this is great news for Jordan, who are aspiring to 4th place in the Constructors' Championship. Sauber, who are currently in 4th place, have already lost Nick Heidfeld. Kimi Räikkönen didn't start the race. They'll score no points. And both the Jordans of Jarno Trulli and Jean Alesi are in the points at 4th and 5th places, ahead of both the BARs. So Jordan are going to move up if they keep going.
Trulli for a scheduled stop. He was the first of the first stoppers, so it's not a surprise to see him in. And so Jarno Trulli then was in 5th position as he came into the pits. Teammate Alesi takes over that 5th position. Lap times are slowing a bit. I wonder, with all of this drama, people flying off the road. We haven't seen Michael Schumacher go off the road, but we know that he has and survived to tell the story. I wonder if it's just spitting with rain. Louise Goodman.
The latest news that we have is Luciano Berti has been taken off to hospital. No further news on his condition. Eddie actually has just walked past me, gone straight into the motorhome. I think he's actually been rather shaken by this incident. He's been in the back of the truck since the accident happened, and as I say, just gone straight into the motorhome. So no further news on Luciano Berti. As soon as we have something official, we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Louise. We're on lap 20 out of 36 in this restarted Belgian Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher is stroking his way to victory. 27 seconds ahead of a battle between Giancarlo Fisichella Benetton, which you are looking at now, the blue car, still pursued by David Coulthard in the McLaren Mercedes, who can do nothing about the Benetton Renault. The gap that separates them is 0.6 of a second. Mika Häkkinen is 4th, Alesi is 5th. Trulli is in 6th position, so both the Jordans are in the points, ahead of their Constructors' Championship rivals, BAR and Sauber. 7th is Villeneuve, 8th is Ralf Schumacher, 9th is Barrichello, and 10th is Verstappen. 3 other runners still left. 11th, Frentzen, 12th, Panis, 13th, Benoldi.
Replay, I think it's just going to be Coulthard getting a little bit sideways in the Fagnes chicanes, where he crashed on Friday quite heavily, back end of his car, quite loose through there. But I hope that all of the teams have radioed their drivers, certainly with Ferrari and Benetton in particular, radioed their drivers to say, give the curb on the way into the bus stop plenty of respect. Otherwise, we're going to see more people lose their front wing in that particular corner.
Why, Martin? It hasn't happened in the past. Low, right, high tyre curbs.
Now, what's happened is that they've knocked the cones over in there, so they're taking a tighter line. Louise Goodman.
Yeah, with Juan Pablo Montoya. Juan Pablo, it's been a bit of a dramatic day for you, one way or another.
Yeah, I think, it's a very difficult day for all of us, especially after Luciano's crash. And apart from that, another tough day in the office. I think we've been quite lucky. But, it was pretty interesting, passing cars and play around with it. It was pretty interesting.
Thanks for talking.
Well, one way and another, he's had terrible luck this season. It's the 14th race of the year. It's the 10th time he's retired. He could have won at least 2 races. Don't forget he was taken out of the Brazilian Grand Prix when he was in the lead, when he passed Jos Verstappen's arrows and it moved across and removed Montoya. He could have won at least one other race. He started from pole position. This man's day will come, but it's obviously not here. Eddie Jordan talking to either Alesi or Trulli, and we're on lap 22 with 14 of this very, very eventful Belgian Grand Prix on the finest Grand Prix circuit in the world. And more news from Louise.
Yes, and I'm pleased to say it's good news, Maury. Got the official word on Luciano Berti's condition. He has concussion, but he has no broken bones, and his condition is described as stable. As we already know, he's been taken off to hospital in Liège, but good news there about Luciano.
Good news is a masterpiece of understatement. Louise, I am absolutely amazed. That was a big accident. and I cannot start to tell you how relieved I am to hear that wonderful news. As now into the pit lane comes Jacques Villeneuve from 5th position. This is his second stop, 15 laps still to go. And as usual, this concentrated action from the mechanics. Two of them clear out the side pods to make sure there's no debris in front of the radiators. Nice stop, 8 seconds. He sprints out. He was 1.2 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who will have now moved up and is in the points. Quite incredible. Ralf Schumacher, who started last after they got his car with 4 wheels off the ground onto it, and he'd stormed round and tried to catch everybody up, is now in the points out of the 13 drivers who are left. But of course he has yet to stop a second time, which is what Villeneuve has just done. As we look at David Coulthard, still looking at the gearbox of the Benetton in front of him, thinking, how can I get past? And with a gap like that, he is not going to.
Yeah, they're going to have to get the back end of that McLaren bolted down a bit more somehow, but so often this last few Grand Prix you've seen Hakkinen and Coulthard oversteering on the exit of corners, but that Benetton surely has a beautiful balance today. Fisichella really not struggling at all, and he's got a genuine pace there, so it's nip and tuck between the pyramid. Stayed at 6 or 7 tenths pretty much for 10 laps now between these two, but Coulthard really can't make a big impression on the Benetton, and that's where the Benetton is so fast. Traction out of La Source.
Gosh, it will be an enormous fillip for Benetton and for Renault and for Formula One if Fisichella can stay where he is, because what we all want to see is not one constructor, not Ferrari, not McLaren, not anybody else dominating the scene. This year we've seen Ferrari and McLaren, who've done so for so long, being caught and passed and losing races to Williams. It would be lovely if next year there's a 4th team up there as well. But have a look at the rear wing of David Coulthard's McLaren. It looks unusually oil grimed and dirty to me. It reminds me of Damon Hill's Williams in 1996 in Australia, which was taking oil from Villeneuve's car, which was in front of him, and Villeneuve had to pull out of the race, and Damon Hill won it.
Yes, I saw Coulthard a few laps ago wiping his visor coming past the pit straight very dramatically, as much to say to the team, there's oil coming our way, but it won't affect the performance of his car in any way, shape or form, but it won't help him see through his visor. I think I can see the Benetton mechanics out in the pit lane, which must only be for Giancarlo Fisichella, because Jenson Button is in the wall and out of the race. So will Fisichella pit at the end of this lap? Michael Schumacher's 29 seconds ahead now, and he's backed his pace off. So Michael with such a big lead, and having had that scare that we've heard about by going off at Stavolo. And where does he go? He does indeed go into the pit lane.
Yeah, Giancarlo Fisichella in, David Coulthard not in, so he will move up into 2nd place. And of course this will be the signal for Coulthard to get the hammer down now that he's got Fisichella out of his way, and trying to build up a gap before he has to come in the hope that when he comes out after his stop he will be in front of Fisichella. Time will tell.
Yeah, he's only got to find 6 or 7 tenths, has Coulthard, on an in or an out lap or during the pit stop. And who was that in the background? Hakkinen in for a stop too. So Coulthard, we know, was fueled. It looked like 3 or 4 laps longer on the first stint, looking at the data here. So Coulthard, we know, can go a little, well, we assume can go a little bit further, yet we don't know how much fuel they put in Coulthard's car at the first stop. Certainly leapfrogged him past the Ferrari of Barrichello, and Hakkinen comes out alongside Ralf Schumacher,
who passes him and gets ahead of the McLaren. That is not going to help Mika at all, but Ralf Schumacher moves up a place. This race is really coming alive. We're on lap 24 out of 36. The crowd and the weather, incidentally, which I had expected to, and Mika Hakkinen does to Ralf Schumacher what he did to his brother last year, except that Ricardo Zonta is not there this time.
Just shows you how many revs they've knocked out of that BMW engine. It's twice this afternoon. The fastest car in a straight line easily in qualifying has just been breezed past by a Ferrari first, then a McLaren. So they've really kicked that BMW engine to make sure it can get to the end of the race. Ralf clearly short shifting there, losing an enormous amount of straight line speed.
And we're on lap 25 with Michael Schumacher, who we have seen hardly anything of in this race, because he is, it's a demonstration race as far as he's concerned. And as I say that, we see him on the screen just to establish that the brilliant 4 times a world champion German is on his way to his 52nd Grand Prix, as in comes David Coulthard. Now, when he rejoins, where is Fisichella going to be? But now, James, over to you.
It's going to be very, very marginal indeed. Coulthard needed a good in-lap. He's only been 1 lap since Fisichella made his stop. This has got to be pretty crisp as well for McLaren. 7 seconds they're looking for in a perfect world to try and nip it slightly slow off the fuel hose, but he should do it, Murray.
Fisichella was 8.4, Coulthard 7.2. Look, 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 there is Fisichella, and he passes the pit lane exit before, just marginally before David Coulthard. They are in exactly the same position as they were before the pit stop, and that will be heartbreaking for David Coulthard, who tried so hard when Fisichella had gone into the pits to go faster and be able to get ahead. He has failed.
We don't think they changed the tyres on Fisichella's car at the pit stop. We're not absolutely sure. We haven't. They did not change the tyres on Fisichella's car at the pit stop. So quite clearly, he liked the balance of it so much, and the wear rate clearly not that high around here. So on this shortened race, so Fisichella then just fueled up. And can Coulthard do anything about it on this stint, the final stint of the Grand Prix?
Bit of a gamble for Fisichella, who is on Michelin tyres, of course. And here is Michael Schumacher coming in for his stop with a lead of 37 seconds. So he can refuel, change all 4 wheels, take his helmet off, have a smoke and a cup of tea, put him on back again and rejoin in the lead. A massive, massive lead. And a very slick stop from Ferrari. 7.7 seconds, which is 7/10 of a second faster than the quick one we have just seen. And Michael Schumacher tours out of the pits. He's still going to be in the lead. He has not lost it. And this is his 26th lap. 10 laps coming up at the end of this one for the conclusion of the Belgian Grand Prix, with the positions for 2nd and 3rd still unchanged. And David Coulthard having a real go now. Of course, he's on fresh tyres and Fisichella isn't, and this could make all the difference.
David having a bit of a fake look down the inside there. Now let's see if Fisichella's still got a traction advantage. Of course, he's always going to be, he has indeed, hasn't he? But he's always going to be on the throttle 1 car length earlier. But the Benetton Renault definitely clawing its way out of the slow corners in a very effective manner. Not dissimilar to the way they both left the start line on both the starts this afternoon. But this is where Coulthard passed him in the first race. And he's not close enough this time around, but that's where it's going to happen if it happens.
And that's where Häkkinen passed Schumacher last year with that incredible passing manoeuvre when Schumacher went to the left of Ricardo Zonta and Häkkinen went to the right, and Mika Häkkinen came out in front and won the race. First and second were Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher, who's got this quite incredible record here in Belgium. Second last year, first in 92, first in 94, only to be excluded. First in 95, 96 and 97. Is he going to be first in 2001? Well, David Coulthard, as I said, if he finishes 2nd or 3rd, is going to increase the gap between himself and the 3rd place man in the Drivers' Championship, who is Rubens Barrichello, who is still ahead, of course, of Ralf Schumacher. Race order on lap 26, 36 lap race. Michael Schumacher leads, Fisichella and Coulthard, that you can see there, battling for 2nd place, ahead of Mika Häkkinen 4th and Ralf Schumacher, separated by 8 seconds. Jarno Trulli is in 6th place, his teammate Jorna Lacey, and then look at this.
Look how close Coulthard is this time around, but not quite close enough. Updated information from the pit lane. They just changed the rears on Fisichella's car, apparently, and not the front. So 2 new rears. Leaving the fronts, they do look, there's hardly any grooves left in his front tyres, but Coulthard looking more menacing this time around.
Yeah, obviously it's a balance question, because they could have put on new fronts in the time that it took on to put on new rears.
Yeah, it's not a pit stop saving issue. It's the tyres quite clearly work better. I mean, it's a slick. He's got slick front tyres on effectively which is sort of squeezing the very extreme edge of the envelope of the regulations there. But look at Fisichella's left front, it is virtually bald, no grooves in that one.
They're coming up to lap Verstappen. They've already lapped, as has Michael Schumacher, of course. Enrico Bernoldi, who is 13th out of the 14 runners, and Olivier Panis, who is 12th. Now they're coming up to Jos Verstappen, who is in 11th place in the Arrows. And here we're looking back at the replay of Mika Häkkinen going into the bus stop, getting it cross-threaded, going over the grass, easing off just to keep the front wing clear of the ground, regaining race pace. And of course he was 16 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli. So although he's lost time, it won't have affected his position. And now Fisichella and Coulthard can see Verstappen's lapped or about to be lapped arrows getting closer and closer. It's crucial now for Fisichella that he gets past at the right moment, and hopefully before David Coulthard can do so. But it won't happen on this lap.
And look how dirty Coulthard's car is from it must be, clearly having followed him so long, from the Benetton of Fisichella. A lot of engine oil, and can Fisichella get to the end of this motor race from a reliability point of view? Certainly from a performance point of view, doesn't have too much of a problem at the moment. But without doubt, in this third sector of the race, it's Coulthard with the faster car, and David, that looks a touch of a squeeze.
And they both go through inside the arrows. They shall not pass. The Maginot Line policy from Giancarlo Fisichella in the French engine with the Renault Benetton, and he stays ahead of David Coulthard. What a wonderful season David Coulthard has had. He's had 3 retirements, but he's done so well in all the others.
Coulthard's got a good run through Eau Rouge this time around, and can he sweep around the outside? Indeed he can. Beautiful move from David Coulthard. Somehow or other Fisichella wrong-footed in Eau Rouge. We saw him with a big advantage into Eau Rouge, but somehow he lost it in the middle. Coulthard getting a good slingshot and making it stick around the outside. Now I believe with that faster car, Coulthard will begin to pull away in a clear second place.
So can he do something about Michael Schumacher's lead? Not enough, of course, because Michael Schumacher is half a minute up the road now. He's 30 seconds ahead of David Coulthard's second-placed McLaren as the Scotsman comes up to lap Tasso Marquez. Here's a replay.
Yeah, and he had the extra straight line speed, and when you're up the inside, it's dirtier, it's bumpier. You know you have to brake early, and so does the guy trying to pass you around the outside. He's got the clean line and the confidence. And, well, David put a lot of trust into Fisichella there, that he wouldn't just lock a wheel and slide straight into the side of him too. But I think Fisichella's an old enough hand now that you would put your safety of your chassis in his hands.
Yeah, 88 Grand Prix for Giancarlo Fisichella, and he's a very equable, level-headed chap. He wasn't going to do anything silly. And David Coulthard is now really pulling away from the Benetton. But if Fisichella can finish in a podium position, that is to say in third place, it would be the first time this year that a Benetton has been there. So we are looking now at the Jordan and the Ferrari, pursued by the BAR. And just to get our constructors right, the fourth car there is the Williams. So Ralf Schumacher in 9th place, Jacques Villeneuve in 8th position. And 7th place now is Rubens Barrichello, preceded by Jean Alesi. Both the Jordans are back in the points. Good news for the Silverstone-based team as Schumacher goes through on the inside at Les Combes, and ahead of the BAR, Ralf Schumacher now with 2 stops completed is ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, who started 6th on the grid and is running 8th in the race. Not a very good race for BAR, one has to say. And one is conscious of the fact all the time, of course, that Jordan and BAR are vying with each other to have Honda engines from the Japanese concern as a sole supplier. They both have them this year, but the general belief is that Honda will drop one of the teams, and Jordan are now behind BAR in the Constructors' Championship at the beginning of this race, with just 1 point between them. If they finish now, all of them, all four, in the same positions that they are, Jordan will be well ahead, because they will have scored 3 World Championship points and pulled 2 ahead of BAR. But like I always say, there's still a long way to go. We're on lap 30 out of 36. And Barrichello is pushing Alesi very hard indeed for 6th position. Lap 30 in this 36-lap race in Belgium, and look at this battle for 6th position, the vital 1 World Championship point. Jean Alesi, the French-Sicilian veteran in the Jordan, is staving off Barrichello. Behind Barrichello, trying to take him now as they come up to Les Combes, is Ralf Schumacher, who started last and has fought his way up to 7th. Can he make it 6th? Can he make it 5th?
I suspect Ralf Schumacher's been told to rev the engine harder now. Not going to score any points anyway if he blows up, and he's not going to score points unless he passes at least one of those cars in front of him. So suddenly Ralf Schumacher with more straight line speed now, and Jean Alesi grimly hanging on to try to score an important World Championship point for the Jordan team. His teammate Jarno Trulli 3.7 seconds up the road in 5th place. So Michael Schumacher 30 seconds ahead of Coulthard, who's pulled away 4 seconds from Fisichella. Hakkinen trailing 8 seconds further down from Fisichella. Trulli, Alesi, and this squabble you're looking at now.
Yeah, there's no battle for 1st, 2nd or 3rd places with 6 laps to go, including the one they are on. And I don't think Mika Hakkinen can catch Fisichella, but my goodness, there's going to be a battle for 5th, 6th and 7th, because Jarno Trulli in 5th position in the Jordan. Oh no, he's well clear of Jean Alesi. I say there's going to be a colossal scrap. There is a colossal scrap. You're looking at it for the last World Championship point for 6th place. And if Jean Alesi can get it in only his 2nd drive for Jordan, having scored twice already for the Prost team previously, he will be elated. He's famous for taking off his helmet and throwing it into the crowd. Helmets don't cost all that much, but they're full of extremely expensive radio equipment, and I don't think Jordan would have been expecting him to be in a position to do it. Let's hope for their sake that he changes his mind this time if he finishes in the points. If he does, it will be a magnificent achievement. He's the most experienced Grand Prix driver of them all this year. It is his 198th Grand Prix, and Jean Alesi at Les Combes on lap 31 out of 36 leads Barrichello, who is 7th, leads Ralf Schumacher, who is 8th, and behind them is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR.
Well, they've all stopped twice, as anticipated. Alesi had a relatively trouble-free run. Of course, Barrichello had to stop for a new nose. Ralf Schumacher started at the back of the restarted race after being left stranded on the jacks. The mechanics not quite getting the car down in time and having to get off the grid. So Jean Alesi then grimly trying to hang on still as he heads towards the family chicane. He appears to have enough speed, given that Barrichello is in his dirty ear. You just see Trulli moving out of the foreground of your screen as they came into the chicane.
Yeah, and it appears to me that Jacques Villeneuve has pulled the bung out. It looks to me visually as though he's closing marginally on Ralf Schumacher in 8th place ahead of him, to make it hopefully a 4-car train battle for that 6th position. Michael Schumacher, race leader, as he has led all the way. Once again, the luck has been with him, because when he started this race, Juan Pablo Montoya, the pole position holder in the Williams, had to go to the back, and his brother Ralph was still up on the jack. So good fortune has once again come Michael Schumacher's way, but as ever he has exploited it superbly. His lead has dropped to 26 seconds, but that is a colossal advantage with only 4 laps to go at the end of this one.
and David Coulthard therefore is closing up on him. In fact, on the previous lap he was about 2.5 seconds faster, but I'm sure that's because Michael Schumacher, experienced as he is pacing himself.
Barrichello in a very good position there. Jean Alesi necessarily having to defend his line, and well, I really thought Jean would just spear forwards there and be the last of the late breakers. Didn't do so. Well, probably didn't defend as aggressively as I expected Alesi to be, given that it's for the final point of the afternoon. No point finishing 7th in any Grand Prix, especially this one. So Barrichello moves into an all-important point-scoring position.
Yeah, so look at the gap he's built in, just a few hundred yards, as Ralf Schumacher now decides he's going to have a go. Here's the replay, up to Lecombe, from behind his rear wing and slipstream, out of the dirty air goes Rubens Barrichello, moves across, Jean Alesi has to give way and defer, which gives Ralf Schumacher the opportunity to move up a bit in 8th position, and Jacques Villeneuve is 2 seconds behind this battle you're looking at now, but 2 seconds is a long way in terms of track distance. This is lap 33, we've still therefore got laps 34, and bang, out goes the Jordan of Jarno Trulli. That means to say that Alesi is back in the points again, and Rubens Barrichello moves up another place, a heartbreaking end of race situation for Eddie Jordan's team.
Yeah, poor Eddie Jordan, poor the Jordan team. They don't deserve that. They really don't. They just had Alesi moved out of a point scoring position just as Trulli blows up. They were on for 3 points, and all of a sudden they're on. Well, of course, Alesi moves back a point, back into 6th now with the demise of his teammate. So suddenly they're down to just 1 point, and Alesi under severe pressure from Ralf Schumacher as well. So maybe still Jordan could go home without any World Championship points, and that is not what they deserve.
Now they need this 1 point from Jean Alesi to have the same number as BAR, their Honda engined rivals in the Constructors' Championship, which would put them in 5th place, and yet again poor Jarno Trulli is out of the race. That's the 6th time he's retired this year, and you can see banging his head on his arms in sheer frustration as Michael Schumacher exits the bus stop to conclude his 33rd lap. So he's got about 13 or 14 miles to go now for the 5th victory. I thought for a moment that Barrichello had slowed up a bit there as he came out of the corner on his way up to the bus stop. But still, Ralf Schumacher is pursuing Jean Alesi, and now it's for a World Championship point. If Ralf can get ahead of the Jordan, it will be to move up into 6th place. And as Martin has pointed out, he might as well go for broke. If he blows the BMW engine up, he's lost nothing. If it stays together, unlike that of his teammate Pablo Montoya, he will get a World Championship point. Now, Schumacher was alleged to have said something rather disparaging about Montoya when the Colombian blew his engine up leading the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, which the telemetry disproved, but the fact remains that again it's been Montoya's engine that's gone, and so far Ralf Schumacher's has not. Michael Schumacher is now on lap 34 out of 36, there's his lead. And Coulthard has stretched the gap between himself and Fisichella, who he just passed, to 10 seconds. Fisichella 10 seconds ahead of Häkkinen. The first 4 places looking established, as is 5th for Barrichello, who has speeded up and is marginally catching Mika Häkkinen. But what a scrap for that last championship point.
Now, how many revs will Ralf Schumacher be using down the straight? Surely he's in the absolute ideal position to give it a little bit extra, and now he's not close enough. So but this time around on the managing to stay on the outside, Alesi could take that better line into Lecombe chicane and retains position. 3 laps remaining, of course.
Same sort of situation that Mika Häkkinen had with Michael Schumacher last year, because having spun the Finn in the McLaren Mercedes, started catching Michael Schumacher. He tried to get past him at Lecombe at 1 point, only to virtually have his nose chopped off by the Ferrari as Michael Schumacher established his racing line. But it was on the very next lap that Mika Häkkinen did that incredible move which took him past Zonta to lap him and Schumacher Michael to take the lead. Lap 35 for Michael Schumacher now. Just this one and the next one. between him and yet another 10 World Championship points to take him over the century, to give him 104 World Championship points. He's breaking record after record. If he wins this race, he's going to beat Prost's all-time record.
Ralph's got a chance into the bus stop. He's clearly in the zone here. How late is Alesi on the brakes? Later than we saw when Barrichello passed him, that's for sure. So Jordan now fighting harder than ever to score a World Championship point. I think when John sees a replay of Barrichello passing him, he'll be annoyed with himself for not fighting a little bit harder on that one. But now he's giving it absolutely all he's got.
Well, with Michael Schumacher on his 35th lap, people before this race began were saying, will Michael Schumacher let Barrichello win the race and therefore strengthen his position to be second in the Drivers' Championship by passing David Coulthard? Well, first of all, to do that, of course, he's got to be in a position with Barrichello right behind him. That's not the case. Now Schumacher's having a go again. Now can he get inside? And Alesi once again turns across the front of the Williams BMW. He is absolutely determined that he is going to have that 6th position in the World Championship point that goes with it, and not Ralf Schumacher. But Ralf Schumacher will know what the score is. He will know that on the next lap he's got to be that much closer to Alesi than he was on this one. And Alesi will know the same thing. You can bet that Alesi's spending nearly as much time looking in his mirrors as he is looking ahead of him. And Michael Schumacher is now on his last potentially victorious lap of the 2001 Belgian Grand Prix. He's got 772 World Championship points already. It will be 782. He will only be 16 points behind, 16 and a half points behind Alain Prost's all-time point scoring record if Schumacher wins here. I say we haven't seen much of him, but he's had another great drive, and his brother's doing the same thing.
Well, that's exactly where Bertie and Eddie Irvine got together, but Ralph then just backing out of that scenario. Alesi is 11 years older than the man pursuing him. He's going to be feeling extremely tired. It's been a long and difficult afternoon, and but he's using all of those 11 years of experience to keep that 6th position at the moment. And Ralph seemed very slow in the bus stop, but very, very good under braking.
And here we are on the last lap. Michael Schumacher exiting turn 13 in this 22 corner, 4.4 mile Spa-Francorchamps circuit. A brilliant driver's circuit, and it suits him. He is a brilliant driver. Not very far now to go to give him the all-time record in terms of World Championship wins. 52 victories. Alain Prost has been saying, I hope he does it soon. I'm getting sick of people talking to me about whether he's going to do it. Well, he is going to do it. Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari is coming up to win his 8th race of the season. And his most ever is 9 with Nigel Mansell, and he does it. Michael Schumacher wins and becomes the most successful Grand Prix driver of all time as David Coulthard slides the McLaren through the bus stop to finish in 2nd place.
Michael Schumacher, clearly the driver of the day. He kept his head through all of that, was carelessly off into the distance. Very, very strong drive from Coulthard as well. A well-deserved 6 points and a well-deserved podium place for this man, Fisichella. He's finishing 17 seconds down on Coulthard on the end, faded towards the end. But Häkkinen with a moderately lacklustre for him, especially afternoon, down in 4th place. 36 seconds off the lead, but Michael Schumacher was just swanning around in the end. He gave 6 seconds away in the last lap alone, did Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, there's Barrichello finishing 5th, but who's going to be 6th? Is it going to be John Alesi? Is it going to be Ralf Schumacher? Let's go back down the track and find out. And there is the answer. It's going to be John Alesi. John Alesi in his 2nd race for Jordan retrieves something for the team with a quite superlative fighting drive to 6th position and a single World Championship point, but mostly unseen by us. And of course the heartbroken Jarno Trulli. This has been Michael Schumacher's day, and he quietly contemplates things. I don't think the numbers mean all that much to him. Herbie Blash says, well done, Michael. I would be surprised if we see any euphoric
jumps for joy from Michael Schumacher on the podium at this race. It's been a pretty tense one and a pretty fraught one for all of us after that appalling accident to Luciano Berti. And let us hope the news we had from Louise Goodman that he seems to be all right is indeed true. But a wonderful day for Benetton too. And Ralf Schumacher, well, I was going to say he doesn't seem to be too happy. He's pretty elated about something. I think it was the fighting drive he had with Jean Alesi, who has actually got back with his helmet intact on his head and not disappearing into the crowd. So confirmation, a wonderful win which makes him the most successful Grand Prix driver of all time to the man in red, the Red Baron, Michael Schumacher from Köppen in Germany. David Coulthard has consolidated his second place in the Drivers' World Championship with 3 races still to go, and a superb podium third place for Fisichella and for Benetton, the day after it's announced that he will be moving to Jordan next year. Mika Häkkinen makes it 2 McLarens in the top 4, and Rubens Barrichello makes it 2 Ferraris in the top 5. A point for Jean Alesi and Jordan means that the Jordan team are now tying with BAR for the 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, 4 points behind Sauber. And no change in the top 3 of the Drivers' Championship, of course. And Rubens Barrichello, the gap between him and David Coulthard has been extended, with Ralf Schumacher still in 4th place ahead of Mika Häkkinen and Montoya in 6th position. Look at that.
That's a replay, I would guess, of Jarno Trulli blowing up a few laps before the end of the Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher, clear visor today, dull day overhead, but no problems at all.
I have to say, Martin, that Honda have not got it right this year against Mercedes-Benz, against Ferrari, against BMW, but more of that later perhaps as the victorious trio mount the steps to the podium where shortly we will be seeing them. Another race victory for Bridgestone tyres, another 2nd place for them, a fine 3rd for Michelin with Giancarlo Fisichella. Ferrari, of course, are even further ahead in the Constructors' Championship, which they've already won than they were before. Williams are still 3rd to McLaren, and Sauber are still 4th, but only 4 points now ahead of BAR and Jordan. There's all to play for as far as they are concerned in the 3 remaining races of the year at the most charismatic circuit of them all, Monza in Italy in 2 weeks' time. Then the newest of the lot at Indianapolis 2 weeks after that, and the fabulous Suzuka circuit in Japan in the middle of October. But you're looking now at the man we saw very little of in the race because he was so far ahead. Difficult for him to maintain concentration?
Well, it would appear so. We hear from the pits that he did go off the track. We didn't see it on our pictures, that's for sure, but at that point Michael was still pushing like crazy, building his lead more and more, and since that incident he's really backed off and cruised home, but ended up just 10 seconds clear of David Coulthard in the end.
8 wins for Michael this season. The most any driver has ever had in one season is 9, and that was Nigel Mansell, who's here incidentally in his victorious year for the World Championship in 1992, and Michael Schumacher himself when he was with the Benetton team. There's 3 races left, and if Michael wins 2 of them, it looks as though there's little to stop him. He will add yet another record to his incredible record.
Michael, we saw on that slow-mo replay, still with his rip-off on his visor. He didn't follow anything all day, did he really? Blitzed past a few back markers, but absolutely clear car and helmet and visor for Michelin.
You have heard it before and you will hear it again. The Italian national anthem for the prancing horse team of Maranello, Ferrari. Believe it or not, there have been protests from politically correct killjoys about Michael Schumacher conducting the national anthem in front of the Ferrari joyous team. So he responsibly stands with his hands clasped in front of him. But now he can lift the trophy, the 52nd winner's trophy that Michael Schumacher has done that with in his quite amazing career of 158 Grand Prix. He has won 1/3 of them. An amazing record, which is about to make him not only the most successful driver in terms of victories, but very shortly the most successful driver in terms of championship points. He has been one of the architects for Ferrari's return to the top, and he richly deserves all the success he has had. But isn't it nice to see Benetton back there?
Absolutely. It's great for the sport, great for Benetton and Renault. Eddie Jordan won't be too disappointed either. Of course, Fisichella is going to Jordan next year, and he's looking a bit of a star today. No doubt about that. But the champagne is flowing, and I think that's probably extra good news too.
But the best news of all, subject to official confirmation, is the news that we understand that Luciano Berti was not badly hurt in that appalling accident.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Michael Schumacher, now the outright holder of the outright number of wins, 52 Grand Prix wins, winning here this afternoon at Spa. David Coulthard second and Giancarlo Fisichella third overall.
Thank you.
Michael, you made amazing starts both times, but it must be said that Williams rather helped themselves to the back of the grid.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's unfortunate for my brother, obviously. When you say I made an amazing start, I don't think that's true. I think the guy next to me made an amazing start. I don't know which position he came from, but he almost took me. So on that side, we made average starts, and I was able to just defend my position. And thanks to whatever problem Williams had, I didn't have to fight against them because they saw the first start, they just pulled away, and I had no chance. And I think even on the second start, if Ralph on the second position, he would have just beat me into the first corner. We didn't need to find out, and I had a clear race from that moment on, and obviously delighted.
Now, thousands and thousands of fans across the border from Kerpen, your hometown, and from Germany, they kept you company during the race, but as you said, it really was, you were out on your own. How easy was it to keep your concentration and control?
I mean, I was pushing flat out until, I'd say, the second pit stop. Then I eased off. For whatever reason, I thought I had the chance to open up the gap for an extra pit stop, and we didn't know what would the weather do. So I just wanted to have that safety, and because obviously I was faster than Giancarlo and David couldn't get by, I was able to open up such a lead. That helped. I lost once the concentration going wide in turn 15. I was just playing with too many buttons at the same time, and then running wide and almost going into the barrier. It didn't need much to do that, but when you fight on the limit, when you drive, then that's what can happen.
Thank you very much, Michael. David, second place. Before you came here to Spa, would you have ever predicted you'd have spent so much of the race looking at the rear wing of a Benetton?
Absolutely not. No, Giancarlo was doing an amazing race. Obviously, his car was working better than it has done this season, and he was quick in all the right areas. So out of La Source and out of Stavolo, so it was very difficult to get close. And I knew that my opportunity might come at the pit stop, and I thought I lost it when I caught one of the Minardis in Blanchimont. And I said to the team as I came down the radio, I think it's going to be close. Obviously, he came out in front of me, and then thankfully with the back marker at La Source, it just upset his rhythm a little bit, and I got the run through Eau Rouge, and thankfully was able to outbreak him. So, you know, given the weekend I've had, then I was very happy to get second place, and you know, just hoping obviously that Luciano is 100% and able to do the next race, and then we can all feel it's been a positive weekend.
David, looking at your car during the pit stops, it was absolutely covered with oil. Was that from your car or from someone ahead of you?
I was saying to Giancarlo that I've never been behind such a messy car. I was having to wipe my visor every single straight, and I was out of rip-offs very quickly. And I understand that it just made it across the line, so I think it was spitting all its oil out as the race went on. So it's obviously a lot quicker, but a little bit close to the limit probably.
Thank you very much, David. Giancarlo, first time you've been in one of these conferences since Brazil last year. Can you put your finger on what has happened to your car to make it so much faster?
Obviously there was the new aerodynamics package here, and the car was much more competitive, easier to drive, easier to make a good setup, even much more grip than normal. During the race there was a very good balance, especially after a few laps, because at the beginning there was a lot on the steering, but then it was a good balance. We just missed a few Ks in the straight compared to the people, but maybe in Monza there is one more step on power, and we are very optimistic for the next one.
Now, you had a very unusual tyre tactic at your second stop, and you only changed the tyres at one end of the car. Can you explain why, and was it your choice?
Yeah, it was my choice. There was a problem starting with the new tyres, graining. There was a graining, and it was better to keep the same tyres. In fact, I did the race, completed at the end of the race. I went at the end of the race with the same set of tyres, just on the front, but new on the rear. Was the right choice. We did a very good job. I did two amazing starts, especially the second one from the 6th position. I went to second, and I'm happy. It's a great day, and I would like to say thank you to the team.
Thank you very much, Giancarlo. Michael, back to you. Next race, Italian Grand Prix. You've already got the championship. It's going to be quite a party at Monza.
Yeah, you can imagine. On the other side, we still want to do well, which is going to be maybe a little bit more difficult for us, looking at the characteristic of the circuits. From Hockenheim, we know Williams is very competitive there. So we have to work very hard, and we have to find out what we can actually do against this strong package of what they have. But we certainly will try, as we have tried here. But anyway, we have good reasons to celebrate down there.
Indeed you do. Michael, thank you. Now, Michael and Giancarlo, if you like to speak in your own languages, starting with Michael, please.
Das kann man eigentlich nicht besser beschreiben, als dass das Rennen im Prinzip perfekt gelaufen ist. Was sicherlich sehr schade ist, dass wir diesen Unfall hinnehmen mussten mit Luciano Berti, der sich ziemlich stark verletzt hat, aber dem es soweit wohl sehr gut geht. Was unsere Informationen sind, also er ist bei Bewusstsein, er wird natürlich morgen mit ziemlich vielen blauen Flecken aufwachen, aber ist soweit in Ordnung. Das ist schon mal die gute Nachricht an der ganzen Sache. Aber es zeigt halt, dass der Rennsport nach wie vor Gefahren hat, an denen wir arbeiten müssen, an denen wir arbeiten wollen und werden in Zukunft. Und insofern ist es sicherlich sehr schön, diesen Sieg eingefahren zu haben, aber natürlich mit diesem Beigeschmack, der nicht so nett ist.
Thank you, Michael. Giancarlo?
Bene, è una giornata fantastica e non ci aspettavamo di essere così competitivi in gara. L'obiettivo era di fare punti, avevamo capito che eravamo in una buona condizione, però in gara eravamo molto competitivi e la macchina era molto bilanciata. Il problema era un po' la velocità sul rettilineo molto inferiore agli altri piloti, però abbiamo fatto un ottimo lavoro, ho fatto 2 ottime partenze, soprattutto la seconda, dalla sesta alla seconda posizione, è stata forse l'occasione giusta per permettermi di arrivare terzo. Sono contentissimo, ringrazio la squadra e tutti coloro che hanno collaborato.
Thank you very much.